Oh, wow. Hey there. What seeds are you planting today? So, I've been processing some grief and I wanted to share this gem of a book I found with you while I was organizing. It's called Tear Soup. Let me take a seat and show it to you. So, one of my aunts found this book when my grandmother passed away, and I thought it was really, really cool. It's a recipe for healing after loss, and it has a few authors who dealt with it in their own life. And it is written like a recipe book. It's pretty cool. Grandy's recipe for tear soup. Helpful ingredients to consider: a pot full of tears, one heart willing to be broken open, a dash of bitters, a bunch of good friends. I don't have any of those. Many handfuls of comfort food. I can do that with anything. A lot of patience, tons of it. Buckets of water to replace the tears. Yeah, joy is better, but you got to get through it, right? Plenty of exercise. I love that shit. A variety of helpful reading materials. Enough self-care. Yeah, totally. And season it with your memories. Optional. Have one good therapist and or support group. Well, even Medicaid co-payment for therapy can be quite hard on people. And I personally don't subscribe to too much talking about it. I think life coaching is where it's at, and some accountability for our actions. And I get that therapy can do that too, and there's many different kinds. But when you're dealing with some of the sorrows I've dealt with, it would take the rest of my life to just talk it out. So I find my own creative ways of dealing with it. And I like this part here. It says, this book's good if you're the cook, if your friend is the cook, soup making and the time it takes, if a child is the cook, if you're a male chef, and if there are two of you cooking at once. Tear Soup affirms the bereaved, educates the unbereaved, and is a building block for children. It is. It's a really good book. I love children's books. They're so cool. So, cute little puppy. There's a note from my ex-husband. It was very sweet at that time at the beginning. Thank you. I didn't. All right, so I'm going to... I can't flip the camera. That would be fucked up, wouldn't it? All right, hold on. Not a very good techie girl. I have a heart of gold. White gold, please. There once was an old and somewhat wise woman whom everyone called Grandy, and she just suffered a big loss in her life. Pops, her husband, suffered the same loss, but in his own way. And this is the story of how Grandy faced her loss by setting out to make tear soup. For many years, the custom of making tear soup had been forgotten. As people's lives became more rushed, they found it much easier to pull soup in a can from the shelf and just heat it on the stove. Kind of like sex at the bar, huh? Grief is the same way now. But several years ago, Grandy got a taste of a well-seasoned tear soup. One of her friends made it from scratch after her child had died. As soon as Grandy tasted the rich flavor of that carefully made soup, she promised herself never again to assume that quicker was better. Now, when you are cooking from scratch and make a bone broth or soak your beans, give it time to roast the bones before you make stock. So much richness in that flavor, and waiting is a lot of the recipe. Because of her great loss, Grandy knew this time her recipe for tear soup would call for a very big pot. With a pot bigger than she ever needed before, she would have plenty of room for all the memories, all the misgivings, all the feelings, and all the tears that she needed to stew in that pot over time. Let's look at the pots. We've got not fair, bad news, big disappointment, serious heartache, profound loss, major tragedy, more than I can bear. Murdered, fatal diagnosis, suicide, spouse died, infertility, friend died, Divorce, moved, near-death experience, house fire, retirement, chronic illness, prized possessions, stolen, stillbirth, flunked geometry, unfaithful spouse, child died, loss of status, pet died. Why'd they put that one last? Anywho, it's been a long time since I've read this book. I might cry too. She put on her apron because she knew it was going to get messy. It seemed that grief is never clean. People feel misunderstood and feelings get hurt and wrong assumptions are made all over the place. To make matters worse, grief always takes longer to cook than anyone wants it to. And then Randy started to cry. At first she sobbed. Sometimes she wept quietly, trying to be thoughtful of others and their grief too. And sometimes, when she was in a safe place where no one could hear her, she wailed. I did that so much in my car after my daughter was molested at the tender age of 34 months old. Here's a nice picture of the kitchen witch, as they would call her, but she's just living. And Grandy knew she had to make much of this part of the soup alone. She learned from past experiences that most people don't like being around tears. Her friends would worry if they knew just how many tears Grandy's recipe called for this time. So the old and somewhat wise woman reflected on her own special recipe as she looked down into the large, overflowing pot of memories. It was a task that she could repeat many times during the next few months and years and all of her life. And some of these people who've caused my tears think I'm only focused on them and what they want to fix with me. There's so many of you that have hurt me. Grandy winced when she took a sip of the broth. All she could taste was salt from her teardrops. It tasted bitter, but she knew this was where the magic was and where she had to start. And for now, it was the only thing on her menu. There were things that Grandy never wanted to forget, and there were things that Grandy never wanted to remember again, but they were all mixed up together. And these included the good times and all those horribly bad times, the silly ones and the sad ones. So, with her arms full of memories, Grandy made many trips to the kitchen, one at a time, and she slowly stirred all her precious and not so precious memories into that pot. That's my little cauldron I'm making in some of my previous videos. But eventually she ran out of things to add. That's a fun picture to describe, by the way. Grandy's arms ached, and she never felt stone cold and empty like this before. There weren't any words that could describe the pain she was feeling. What's more, when she looked out the window, it surprised her to see how the rest of the world was going on as usual, while her world had stopped. Her grandson Chester, who just wanted his Grandy to be happy again, hoped his chocolate drops would make her feel better. And Mrs. Bloomclots, Miss Chadwick, and Mr. Long, all brave yet fearful neighbors, dropped by to see how Grandy was doing. They filled the air with the words, but none of the words took the smell of tear soup away. And Grandy was gracious because she knew how helpless they all felt. They wanted to fix her, but they couldn't. All Grandy really needed from them at that moment and any other that they snunned and robbed and stole and molested was a knowing look of integrity and a warm hug of truth. There were also days when Grandy hungered for a thoughtful ear. Sometimes she would just ask total strangers, "Hey, you care to join me in a bowl of tear soup?" Oh, thanks, most would reply. I don't have time for that today. And even some of Grandy's friends hurried past her. At least she had a few left. And they pretended not to notice the aroma of her soup coming through her open door. Grandy found that most people can tolerate only a cup of someone else's tea or soup. The giant bowl where Grandy could repeatedly share her sadness in great detail was left for a few willing friends. And this is what some people go through with just a few of the losses. I've gone through every single motherfucking one on that list, and then some. I'm here, Midge cried. I got here as fast as I could. And I'll be here whenever you need me. What a tragedy. I'm so sorry you're having to make such a big pot of soup. Oh, what a relief. Grandy knew she didn't have to be careful what she said around Midge. Midge wouldn't try to talk her out of anything she was feeling. And Grandy could even laugh and not worry that Midge would assume Grandy was all better and over her grief. I'm sorry I couldn't get here sooner, said Midge. No problem, replied Grandy. I've had plenty of help, but most of these friends will be history pretty soon. They'll be over my tragedy long before I am. But I know you'll still be around. Thank you. I don't know what to say, but I'll be glad to listen, Midge said tenderly. Come on, tell me about it while we make some bread to go along with your soup. These two friends who had shared 1,000 laughs and just as many tears pounded at the bread dough together. I feel like I'm unraveling, Grandy cried. I'm mad. I'm confused. I can't make any decisions. Nobody can make me feel good. I'm a mess and I just didn't realize it would be this hard. Well, why don't we go for a walk while we wait for the bread to rise, Midge suggested. More waiting for good food. I know exercise is supposed to help me feel better, but I feel like I have concrete blocks strapped to my legs. You better not go too far or you'll have to carry me home, moaned Grandy. Well, I suggest music and a lighter step. I must say, her friend looks a little toxic, like she might be planning something. But you see, that's the view I have on people at first now. I'll never tell you that right away, but I'll be thinking it. Miss Chrysler called and reminded Grandy that she'd been making tear soup for years now and would be more than glad to come right over and show her how to do it the right way. Thanks, but no, said Grandy. This pot has my name on it. Grandy knew better than to let Miss Chrysler or anyone else tell her what she should do to get through this terrible loss. And next, her recipe called for some comfort food. For Grandy, this meant mashed potatoes or ice cream. For me, it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and milk. Comfort food always makes you feel better, at least for a little while. It gets past that big lump in your throat when other foods can't. I think it needs some chocolate, too. After all, it was her fucking soup. God forbid this place. Well, some of y'all keep going to worship even though you're mad at God, and I get that. I actually, when I got this book, went through all that and forgave God, or so I didn't have the right to do that. Forgave myself for questioning him. Went through the next 16 years of my daughter's life and did a lot for the Lord. Well, the last 3 is when I dropped him again, but I gave that a lot of thought. I've studied a lot of rich history and really trusted in my values and where they lie spiritually now. And you can see them on my ancestor altar behind this book to your right above. Yeah, so she sensed that people believed that if she really had faith, she'd be spared deep sorrow, anger, and loneliness. Grandy kept reminding herself to be grateful for all the emotions that God had given her. We do have the holiest of spirits, do we not, within ourselves? On some afternoons, people would ask questions like, is it soup yet? Or, how long is it going to take? You've been at this for over a month now. It's time to get out of the kitchen. Grandy fumed at the caller's advice. Grandy looked forward to getting the mail each day because she knew there wasn't going to be any in there because people keep rerouting it in my situation. But yeah, she dreaded the day when no more sympathy cards would come. God, I could just go for one. I might hold on to it. And I used to hand those out to everybody. They never even said thank you, homemade stationery, shit like that. Yeah. When she was alone and needed to think, she found it helpful to keep notes on her soup making. Today I'm upset that I have to be making this soup. I don't think anyone remembers that I'm making soup from scratch. What's the use? Life seems to be so hard. I'm beginning to like the taste of this soup. I think I could live on it forever. That's the scary part, right? And thank goodness, Grandy and Pops, they've been married a long time. They already knew each other's tear soup would be different. Secretly, Grandy wished Pops would put more flavoring in his soup, but he doesn't want to, and he's perfectly content to dine alone and sip his own soup. Making tear soup is hard work. Sometimes it was all she could think about. Even the things Grandy used to love to do, she didn't have the energy for, nor did she care about anymore. Some of Grandy's friends over the years had not tended to their tear soup, and their soup boiled over, and the pot scorched, and it was a mess, and it took them a long time to clean up their pots because they had to start over, and the smell of burnt soup still lingers in some of their homes. Grandy knew there were times when she needed to take a break from her soup making, and even though it was hard to do, she forced herself to get away. Hey, Grandy heard that a neighbor was having a take-her-turn party in the kitchen. Some people thought that the neighbor was eating too much tear soup. So Grandy, being an old and somewhat wise woman, called and invited her to a special soup gathering where it's not bad manners to cry in your soup and have second helpings. Look at that. Soon, the thoughtful cooks sat at Grandy's table and discussed the process of making tear soup. There are some parts that require help from friends, and some parts you just have to do alone. They shared stories about soup making they wouldn't dare tell anyone else for fear of being judged a bad cook. And they all laughed knowingly when Grandy remarked how on the days when she was daydreaming while driving, she was glad that the car seemed to know where she wanted to go. And these people had become Grandy's new best friends. Say what? One day, as Grandy and Chester were going for a drive, Chester asked, "Mom says you've been making tear soup. What does she mean?" "Well, tear soup is a way for you to sort through all the different types of feelings and memories you have when you lose someone or something special. Remember when your baby brother died right before he was born and your mom sat for days holding his blanket and weeping? She was making tear soup." "You made tear soup by acting out your own disappointment when you shouted at Jason, wishing his brother would die too. And remember when Billy's dog died and he didn't want to play with you? And not feeling like having fun is one of the ingredients of tear soup also. And remember when Aunt Meg got divorced and they had to move? There was a lot of tear soup simmering in that house." And some days, when you're making tear soup, it's even hard to breathe. Some days you feel like you're running away and you just hope a better day comes around soon. And then comes one of the hardest parts of making tear soup. It's when you decide it may be okay to eat something else instead of soup all the time. So the next morning, as Grandy was cleaning up, Chester asked her if she was done making tear soup. "Well, I don't think you actually ever finish it. The hard work of making this batch of soup is almost done, though. I'll put the rest in the freezer and I'll pull it out for a starter from time to time to have a little taste. Or a new batch when there's another catastrophe. Hey, sexy. What you doing? Reading a book? So what else have you learned by making tear soup, Grandy? I've learned that grief, like a pot of soup, changes the longer it simmers and the more things you put into it. I've learned that sometimes people say unkind things, but they really don't mean to hurt you. And most importantly, I've learned that there's something that I've known deep within all of us, ready to help us survive the things we think we can't survive. Randy, you know so much. What will I do after you die? Oh, don't worry. I'll leave you my recipe for tear soup. Grandy's cooking tips. Grief is the process you go through as you adjust to the loss of anything or anyone important in your life. The loss of a job, a move, a divorce, a death of someone you love, or a change in health status are just a few of the situations that can cause grief. Grief is both physically and emotionally exhausting. It is also irrational and unpredictable at times and can shake your very foundations. The amount of work your grief requires will depend on your life experiences, the type of loss, and whatever else you have on your plate at the time. And for the love of yourself, get some fortitude and self-care, or you'll never make it. A sudden, unexpected loss is usually more traumatic, more disruptive, and requires more time to adjust to. If your loss occurred through violence, expect that, plus all the normal grief reactions, will be exaggerated. You may lose trust in your own ability to make decisions and or to trust others. Assumptions about fairness, life order, and religious beliefs are often challenged. Smells can bring back memories of a loss and a fresh wave of grief. Seasons, with their colors and climate, can also take you back to that moment in time when your world stood still. You may sense you have no control in your life. Being at work may provide relief from your grief, but as soon as you get in that car and start driving home, you may find your grief come flooding back, or vice versa. You may find that you are incapable of functioning in the work environment for a short while. And because grief is distracting, it also means you're more accident-prone. The object of grieving is not to get over the loss or recover from the loss, but to get through the loss and learn what you can and love the best you can. And keep giving. Over the years, you'll look back and discover that this grief keeps teaching you new things about life. Your understanding of life will just keep going deeper. May you find who you truly are. And if you're the cook, this is your grief and no one else's. Your friends can't feel your loss in the same way, and it will not affect their life the way it affects yours, and you may resent them for that, or vice versa. And at first you may think dying would be preferable to having to go through this pain. Just try to stay alive. Sudden mood swings are normal. You may suddenly be unreasonable. In short, try your best to educate your friends about what you need and how they can help. Be as honest as you can about how you're feeling. Don't give up if your friends let you down, especially if it's all of them. You're all you've got now. Keep going. But if they continue to be insensitive to your grief, you may need to distance yourself for a while or forever, at least until you get stronger. At first, you'll probably want to talk to as many people as possible, but after about a month or so, you'll find one or two people whom you can count on, if you're blessed, for the long haul, to just be there and listen when you need to talk. View your thoughts in a journal, write them down, picture them. It will help you process and also to remember new insights you're learning. Consider attending a support group and go at least a few times before deciding if it's helpful or not. Be open to counseling if you can afford it. Exercise, sleep, drink plenty of fluids, eat a well-balanced diet. Pamper yourself for sure. Take lots of baths, get a massage, take a shower, go outside, touch grass, cry on the floor, but fucking move. Try not to compare your grief with another's. You don't earn points for having a more painful experience than someone else has, and you won't feel less grief if someone else's loss is worse. You deserve to feel happy again. Being happy doesn't mean you forget. Learn to be grateful for the good days and don't be too hard on yourself. Long after everyone else has forgotten your loss, you will continue to remember. Learn to be content with your private memories. If your friend is the one who's making tear soup, be there for your friend, even when you don't understand and it's boring and you've heard it before and you're tired. Be a source of that comfort by listening, laughing, and crying with them. Stick close to your friend and defend their right to grieve. Allow your friend to make mistakes, or at least to grieve differently from the way you would grieve. Send flowers, send money if you know this would help, send cards. The message doesn't need to be long, but for goddamn it, do something to let them know you care. Don't just let them call you if they need anything. Just let them know you haven't forgotten them, and send one every few weeks for a while. Call your friend. Don't worry about being a bother. Let your friend tell you if they don't want to talk about their loss right now. Answering machines and email are great ways to keep in touch, allowing the bereaved person to respond only when they feel up to it. Try to anticipate what your friend may need. Bereaved persons sometimes don't even know what to ask for. Avoid offering easy answers and platitudes. This only invalidates their grief. Be patient. Don't try to rush your friend through grief. Give your friend permission to grieve in front of you. Don't change the subject all the time or tell them not to cry or act uncomfortable when they do cry. But you could tell a joke or give them a hug. Ask them questions, but don't tell them how they should feel when they answer you. Invite your friend to attend events together, as you normally would. Let them decide if they don't want to attend. Don't assume because your friend is having a good day that it means they're over their loss. And be mindful of holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries. I can't tell you how many times I've been that friend for people. It's really weird to be without someone now. Grief work takes time, much longer than anyone wants it to. If a child or a spouse dies, it may be a year before the bereaved begins to gain a sense of stability, because the loss is highlighted by each season, holiday, anniversary, or special day. The second year is not so great either. You may be okay one minute, but the next minute you may hit bottom. Nighttime can be particularly difficult. Some people have trouble getting to sleep, while others have trouble staying asleep. And then there are those who don't want to wake up from life or sleep. And most people can tolerate another's loss for about a month before wanting the bereaved person to get back to normal. And if a child is the cook, please be patient and delicate. Remember, you're building the future. Be honest with the child and give simple, clear explanations consistent with the child's level of understanding. Be careful not to overload them with too many facts. This information may need to be repeated many times. Prepare the child for whatever they can expect in a new situation, such as going to a memorial service, viewing a body. Explain as best you can how others may be reacting and how you would like the child to behave if possible, or what safety measures you will make for their comfort level too. When considering if a child should attend a memorial service, consult the child. Their wishes should be the main factor for the decision. They are a small soul that's just in a little body. They're a large soul that's just in a little body. Include the child in gatherings at whatever level they want to participate. Helping to make cookies for the reception may be all they want to do. Expect them to ask questions like, why does he have his glasses on if he's dead and can't read? Or why is her skin cold? Younger children are more affected by disruptions in their environment than by the loss itself. Avoid confusing explanations of death, such as gone away or gone to sleep. It might be better to say his body has stopped working and his spirit is in the other realms. Avoid making God responsible for any of this shit. If you could, just let the child tell you what they believe before you brainwash them in any way. Don't assume that if the child isn't talking about the loss, it hasn't affected them. Be consistent and maintain the usual routines as much as possible. Encourage the child to express their feelings and to ask questions. Children may act out their grief in their fantasy play and artwork, which is exactly what I intend to teach many people how to do. Not acting out your grief, but clearing the air of it, binding it up and making something incredibly beautiful in the 3D. And so anyway, if children have seen adults cry in the past, they'll be less concerned about tears now. Show affection and let them know they're loved and will be taken care of. Each child reacts differently to loss. Behaviors that you may observe include withdrawal, acting out, disturbances in sleeping and eating, poor concentration, being overly clingy, regression to earlier stages of development, taking on attributes of the deceased, stomach aches, migraines, chronic fatigue, disassociation, depression, fears, so many. Pay attention. Sharing your grief with a child is a way to help them learn about grief. Now, if you're the male chef, let's see what they have to say. Because again, I haven't read this book in a while, and I didn't agree with a lot of things they said about men in the day. But let's see what they got. The world may not see you the bereaved person that you are. That's true because of your gender. In our society, you may be seen only as the support person, a role you play very well. I know that's how it feels. If you've been taught from an early age that big boys don't cry, you may feel ashamed of your own tears, and other people may also be uncomfortable with your tears. Don't hold your grief in. Find a safe place or someone who is not afraid of your grief. People may tell you how strong you are when you hold in your grief. Don't confuse it with weakness. Not grieving is not strength. It's just that messy pot boiling over later. In fact, holding in grief is very hard on your body and can weaken your health. And gender does not determine your grieving style, but it may affect the way you grieve. Assume that your initial response to grief is the right response for you at that time. Try not to behave as others think you should, but as you need to. Well, I think that was lovely. If there are two of you cooking, again, let's see what they're saying. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So they say, Elon, you need to build some more spacecraft, motherfucker. Grief is unique to the individual. You may both experience the same loss, but you won't grieve in the same way. In other words, you're in it together, just like everything else you signed up for, right? But hey, I did my 22 years, 24 if you count the meeting, and I feel like I was ready for retirement, so I'm a divorcee, and I was just thinking about that, but maybe you are too. But you are in it alone. Yeah, you're in it together, but you're in it alone. May you not have a marriage like that. At first, you may feel closer to each other than ever before, but then things may change. The farther you get away from your shared loss, you might not understand each other. Try not to judge each other. Talk to each other when you can. Don't let your partner be your only source of comfort, but for God's sake, make sure the other person's a man unless you have not disclosed that you're on the down low or seeking out confirmation of your sexuality. Please be honest in all notes. Write each other notes. It is normal to want others to grieve the same way you do and to communicate the same way you communicate, but life is just not that easy. Sexual desire may be affected. You both need intimacy, but not necessarily sex. You might want one or the other, but not necessarily at the same time or times. Talk about it. Remember the past and hope for the future, but always live in the present. You only have right now, and you don't know how long that right now will be. Now, if you're looking for help, well, here we are. These are some good websites. Please take a screenshot. Here are some more. I haven't read this book since my grandmother passed away in 2004. I don't know that they're all accurate, but they are all here for you to look at. And I hope that they help someone, maybe me. Now, it says you can get this on video. How cute would that be to play for children? Yeah, that would be nice. And then we have Grief Watch. And I really do think that it's a wonderful, wonderful website. You can find it at www.griefwatch.com. I never went to their website, and I just enjoyed the book. I do have my own ways of dealing. There's some info about the lovely people here. And I just think it's really cool. I would check them out for sure. The illustrations are lovely with some real mementos. Very cool. Just in case you forgot the recipe and you're screenshotting things now, it's a good one. So yeah, deer soup in the making, and I'm almost done with my pot, but you know what my landlord thinks I should have been done a long time ago. I only get $1,200 a month, and I'm struggling to do things for myself technologically, but I won't give up my dream of my business and where it's going, because it's going to help people, and I want to teach them how to get over the hard things in life, not because I'm completely over it, but because we're going to be besties. So anyway, what seeds are you planting? Or perhaps you want to nick them and soak them in your soup and then plant them after that. All right, well, anyway, if you would like to leave any comments and talk about it, I also have a community page where I've only put one little posting, but it's there for a chat that's continuous. I don't really want to go back and forth every day and try to keep up with the stress of that, but I will always answer and check in on people. If you're grieving, if you're able to help me, if I can help you in any way, let's talk about it. Take care. Bye. I love you.